Welcome to the DraftKings Daily Trot. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Taking a look at tonight's 14-game slate. Big one. A lot of offensive games to targets, in my opinion. I mean, you get a lot of opportunities to kind of stack on tonight's slate, and pitching doesn't really hinder you as far as kind of handcuffing you to taking a lot of value bats.
Yeah, nobody over 11K. Some pretty decent arms too at the top there. So there are quite a few options for pitching, but again, at the bottom, like most nights, there's quite a few to target. So good news. I like it.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at catcher here, and I think if you're paying up really for Wilson Ramos or Chris Iannetta, it's really a GPP move for me. It's kind of hard just because you have a Wellington Castillo for about $1,000 less in a similar matchup who hammers lefties as well. And Adam Morgan's really a guy to target. And, speaking of stacks, I think this Arizona one's going to be pretty popular tonight.
Yeah, I was doing the cheat sheet, and every position it was like, oh, Diamondback, oh, Diamondback, oh, Diamondback. Okay, all right, I can't do that. But you want to. And yeah, Wellington Castillo obviously leads off what is a strong Diamondbacks lineup tonight against a pretty weak pitcher in Morgan. So I think you definitely look at him. I think in terms of paying up, like you were speaking of, they aren't bad options, but they're not what you really want optimally either. I don't think you want to pay up that much at catcher tonight. So yeah, tournaments, sure. But I like Wellington Castillo, and it's tough to beat that price.
Yeah, it is. And you're kind of looking, I mean, they're all in a similar spot. I mean, Wilson Ramos and Chris Iannetta, both of them hammer lefties. And same thing with Castillo. I mean, he's in a good ballpark as well. So all those guys have been hitting pretty well. And I think you just kind of take the discount and move on. And I think Castillo is going to be probably the chalkier, but I don't think that's a problem for me. If he's 20%, 25% on the tournaments, I don't really care because I want to use that extra cash to kind of spend at other positions.
Right, and in that sort of same range, you look at Jonathan Lucroy, and you still wonder if you can sort of target Urias a little bit here. He's been super inconsistent, obviously getting things rolling here the last two starts, but still hasn't shown that he can sort of control his stuff for 6 innings, So I'm looking at the Brewers in a super contrarian way, but at the same time, he hasn't been consistent enough to really cross them off as an option either. So 3,800, not a bad price for him.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And as you mentioned, I mean, he hasn't been able to put together through a full start. And you look at that. I mean, maybe he gets through the order once. I mean, then maybe struggles a little bit the second time through. And Lucroy's been hitting pretty well, and at that price tag, I do like him quite a bit as a contrarian play. Evan Gattis at 3,500 is another one. This Houston team I like quite a bit here against John Lamb and getting that bullpen as well in Minute Maid Park. Gattis has been really struggling of late, so he's definitely just a GPP play because he is quite boomer bust, but it is a great spot for him.
Yeah, and then the other one that you're kind of looking at here is Vaught against Shoemaker. Shoemaker obviously been borderline dominant over the last month or so, but I still think I'm not afraid of him. His stuff has been great. Strikeout rate has been up, but I think Vaught against a righty is a pretty decent matchup, and I think Shoemaker is going to come back down to earth here at some point soon. So I'm definitely not avoiding him with Ace, and I do like Vaught, obviously 3,300. So
yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, he's home run prone still, low ground ball rate, so I do think you can take that into consideration. And Vogue's been hitting pretty well of late, and at that price tag, I mean, it is a nice little discount. So,
right.
Outside of that, I mean, there's not a lot of lower options. I think that's going to be one of those things. If you do want to get a guy below 3K, I mean, maybe you take a look at when lineups come out and see if Deanna Navarro or Yasmani Grandal is hitting in the middle of the lineup somewhere, and kind of get some exposure to that way.
Yeah, I mean, you're really only looking for 6 or 8 points, so that's actually not too hard to come by. You just find those punt catchers in good spots, batting 7th in the order. and just roll it out there.
Yeah, and
YOLO.
that's usually Chris Iannetta, but all of a sudden, he's hitting,
I
over
know.
400 over the last 10 games, and they price him up like he's freaking Bryce Harper. So,
Yep.
moving on to first base here, and Edwin Encarnacion, man, I mean, 7 homers over the last, really this month, I maybe have more. Talk about a hot streak, and he's going to have a chance to really get it going again against Mike Wright there, who's allowed a 1.49 home runs per nine to right-handers, 340 WOBA. It's in Camden Yards. I think you kind of continue to go that route and just ride Encarnacion, but Paul Goldschmidt in that area against lefty and Goldie starting to kind of get it going here is also an intriguing play.
We knew this was going to happen with the Blue Jays. It seems like it's happening now, and I guess you just start throwing tournament stacks with them every night, pretty much regardless of who's sort of pitching there, because they're just dominant certain times, and there's nothing you can really do if Encarnacion, and so it was Encarnacion and Donaldson last night. But Jose Bautista's just kind of waiting in the weeds right now, having relatively weak games when they don't need him. But he's going to get a 2-homer game at some point here soon. So I like all of them. I'm not really avoiding either. So even with the expensive cost, I think you're okay to roll with them. I like Goldschmidt better tonight, personally. I don't think price has much to do with it. Obviously, it's only 100 less. So I just think in terms of the matchup, it's better for Goldschmidt, but you can't really deny what Encarnacion's doing. And hey, whatever. Throw him in there for sure.
Yeah, and that kind of takes Ortiz out of play tonight. He got away with a 9th inning homer last night in a double. But obviously, he doesn't have the matchup against like an Encarnacion or Goldschmidt at a similar price tag. So he's kind of off my radar tonight. And same with kind of a lot of those guys around there, like a Will Myers or a Ryan Zimmerman. I think you can kind of spin down if you're looking to go that way. I don't plan on spinning down much. But I think a Daeho Lee against the lefty Elias there. And I kind of like the Seattle Mariners as kind of a sneaky stack as well, with some of the right-handed bats in there, plus Cano on the left. A relatively high total out there in Fenway for both sides. And I think mainly people are still going to always look at the Red Sox side. And Elias really kind of your average lefty, and I think Seattle can kind of get to him there.
Yeah, I'm looking at a few different bats, but yes, I do agree for Seattle. Daeho Lee could be I meant a few more bats in the Seattle lineup, but yeah, Daeho Lee definitely intriguing there. And then one more I'm kind of looking at here in a tournament way, Joey Votto, lefties versus McCullers. You're not targeting McCullers tonight, but I think he's an interesting one-off.
Yeah, I think so too. McCullers is a pretty stout arm. You're obviously looking at Minute Maid. This Reds team has been hitting pretty well of late, and Votto's kind of picked things up. And at that pricing, it's not a bad option in that ballpark to kind of get some exposure to him and like a Jay Bruce.
Right.
Votto's really started to look like more himself. Hitting 400 in the last 10 games. Obviously, the walks are up, which was nice because he was striking out quite a bit before then. At that pricing, I do like it, and I think it is a contrarian way to go. And I think kind of a lot of things are obvious tonight, like the Diamondbacks, like the Blue Jays, those type teams.
Right.
And that kind of puts the Reds off the map. So if you are building multiple amps and want to be different, I don't hate that move.
And again, it's not a full red stack by any means. You're just looking at those two guys because I think McCullers is going to have a pretty simple night with the rest of the lineup. But I think those two lefties are tournament viable. I could definitely see a home run or at least a double or something like that. Votto's hitting pretty well of late. So, and it's really more of a price considered thing when you look at the guys around him. He definitely has the most sort of upside, especially with, everything considered.
Yeah, definitely. And look at this Phillies team. They're going to have a matchup. Obviously, they struggled last night against J. Happ. You're taking a look at them. Ray hasn't really been a great arm. 355 low ball out to righties. Are some of these right-handed bats in play for you? Like if you want to go cheap with a Tommy Joseph at 3,400, be super contrarian and pay down. Does that work for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think Philly's in played, and as you mentioned, Robbie Ray. It's usually more about the arm they're facing than sort of what Philly is gonna do. They kind of work off what they're facing. So, in terms of Ray, he hasn't really been that great. I don't know why he's priced up so high. Obviously, he had that good outing against Miami, but um, other than that, he's kind of gotten beat up here. So I'm definitely not avoiding him. So I guess that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. I'm not necessarily confident in the Phillies, but at the same time, I think we can look at Phillies as one-offs in tournaments for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And kind of looking, I mean, in that range, there's not too many other guys to really look at. I think um, you're kind of chasing some guys, if anything, in that range. And guys like Matt Adams, guys like Travis Shaw, Lynn, those types of guys just either won't be in the lineup or kind of not options. So it gets a little dwindled down once you get past that 3,500 range.
Mm-hmm.
Moving to second base here, and Jose Altuve, man. I mean, he's priced like Kobe Bryant on the last day of the season to shooting guard, and 5,600. Do you like him as a one-off? I mean, or is he more just a stackable guy to you in Houston?
I
Houston
like him
stack.
as a one-off more than a stack, actually. So that's kind of how I'm looking at him. I think he's arguably the top player on the slate, with matchup considered. So, yeah, definitely liking him as a strong option tonight.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you look at that offense, and really the first 4 or 5 guys are stackable to me. And I'm with you. I think Altuve is a nice one-off as well. If you want to get some exposure to it, I mean, the guy's hitting nearly 460 in the last week and a half there. Getting a lefty. I mean, Lamb. He's going to get a lot of these guys kind of on the radar tonight. 350 WOBA, 1.35 points per 9 to righties. And Altuve, I mean, we mentioned him with Gaddis already, and I think Altuve is the stronger play here tonight, but you are paying up for it.
Yeah. And again, there's a few players in that range as well, but I definitely like Altuve over them if you can fit it in.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of spinning down, I mean, I like Cano kind of only part of a Seattle stack. I'm not really on Kinsler or Murphy, or I know Walker's really struggled, but I'm not consistently on the Texas bats. I think there are kind of better options.
So you are on Cano?
Only in a Seattle stack. Not really a
Okay.
one-off guy for me. I'd rather go up to Altuve and one-offs.
Okay. In terms of this range, I kind of like Altuve or just pay down. I'm not really buying anyone in this group. I mean, if Daniel Murphy plays, I'm always in on Daniel Murphy. But beyond that, I think you just jump down to Segura,
Yep.
or something like that.
Yeah, I
Neil
agree.
Walker, I also really like him at 4K against Gant.
Yeah, I do too. I think those Mets lefties are at a nice price tag, and I'm with you. Segura and Walker, kind of my preferred plays in that area. And getting lower, I mean, I don't mind Starlin Castro against the lefty Dean there. At 3,600 is not really a bad price tag either.
For sure. Yeah, no, I do like that.
Yeah, and outside of that, I mean, really going down low, there isn't a ton to really look at. I mean, if an Aaron Hill jumps into the lineup again, you can take a look at him at 2,600. As you mentioned, Urias isn't really a guy to completely shy away from. And at that price tag, I mean, it's not really crushing you either.
Indians are definitely leverage plays today against Quintana. I don't think they're going to be highly owned just because of the matchup, and I'm not. It's not like Quintana's an ace or anything, so I think they can definitely get to him um in a range of outcomes type of way. So I'd be looking at a Kipnis, or I saw Yan Gomes was like 2,400 or something today. That's super cheap for one off. So definitely look there. And beyond that, I mean, I think Kipnis is a decent sort of tournament swerve at 3,200.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, price considered, he's pretty low, and you look at him. I mean, his ownership's going to be pretty down, and I'm with you. I mean, in that range, there's not really other guys to really look at. I'm not really looking at a guy like Phillips. I mean, we mentioned a couple Reds, but more so from the left side, like Bruce and Votto, if anything. Not really looking at guys like Cozart or Phillips.
No.
So
Definitely not.
Logan Forsythe at 3,500 is intriguing. I mean, Jeff Samar just pitched pretty well this season, but obviously, I mean, is a guy to get. Can be fairly average at times. I mean, he struggled the last couple starts. I mean, against relatively weak opponents like the Braves, the Dodgers haven't been that great, and he hasn't looked good. So, the raise at those price tags aren't really that bad of an option. As far as one-offs, if you need some value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you.
Third base here, and once again, I mean, Josh Johnson's kind of your most expensive guy there at 5,600. Are you looking at him as far as tournaments go, or is he all play, all formats, lock him in type of guy if you can?
If you can, sure. That's a lot. I think I prefer Altuve tonight just based on matchup, which is kind of tough to say at this stage, but man, yeah, the Blue Jays are turning it on in a big way. And I don't think it's viable to totally avoid them if you're making multiple lineups right now. Like you have to make Toronto lineups in tournaments. You can't just like go through your process and just leave them completely out of your strategy now. You have to. It showed itself pretty clearly last night. And I'd imagine in some way it's going to again tonight, even if it's not a Donaldson or it's not an Encarnacion. It might be Michael Saunders and Jose Batista, but it's going to be the Blue Jays at some point. Someone's hitting a homer. That's just what they do. So.
Yeah, and I think 5,600. I mean, it is a steep price tag, and you do have some guys lower. I'm kind of looking at a guy a little bit lower. I mean, Nolan Arenado, 4,600. I mean, yes, he's away from cores. Gets lefty Adam Conley, who's been relatively up and down this season. I mean, he's allowed a 3.11 WOBA over the last couple of years here. Two right-handers. I mean, Arenado's absolutely crushed pitching. He's on a real hot streak right now. He hasn't really been that bad away. I mean, he's only hitting 271 on the road. I mean, obviously he's better at cores, but still 8 homers on the road out of his 20 there. I don't mind him at that price tag.
20 home runs. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
No, it's not too shabby.
Not bad. Yeah, definitely in play against Conley. Conley's been all over the map. You just literally have no idea what's going to happen in starts that he does. So yeah, I like that call. I don't know if it's contrarian, but he's obviously not going to be Coors ownership Arenado. So yeah, I do like that call quite a bit. And then in terms of other guys, I mean, again, the Diamondbacks, Jake Lamb, you're kind of looking at him if you're doing the Diamondback stack. And do we go back to this Yankees team? I'm kind of looking at A-Rod here. Obviously, they got completely smashed last night, but I think it might be a viable option to go back to them tonight.
Yeah, I agree. And, along the lines, I mean, I'm looking at kind of Castro and A-Rod in that span. I mean, maybe a cheap Aaron Hicks in the outfield. So I'm with you. I mean, you're looking at Dean. I mean, not a strong lefty by any means. I mean, over a short time, he's allowed a 361 WOBA to righties, a really poor ground ball rate. And target field, I mean, in the summertime, it's not really that bad of a place to hit in as well. So I think you can look at some Yankees bats. And I think you're going to get them at kind of a low ownership as well, just because they aren't kind of that obvious play.
Right.
Looking lower, I mean, back to the Phillies, I mean, like Cal Franco, 3,700 against Ray. An intriguing option at that price tag. I think it's definitely a GPP only play for me because Michael's floor is pretty low. Mm-hmm. I like Justin Turner. I like Brandon Drury if he's in the lineup, if both are in the lineup, which Turner should be after the day off. I mean, both are in a really good spot. It's just a matter of finding time for them. It's one of those ones where you're checking the lineups to make sure that they're actually in.
Yeah, and I'm going to get into something else here. Chris Archer, not someone you want to target, but these Giants bats are super cheap. And I've kind of spent a little time sort of just looking at them like, I don't know. I'm thinking like Matt Duffy at 3,300. It's just like staring me in the face. I know it's not a great play, and Archer's obviously been a pretty strong arm of late, but I am kind of looking at them as one-offs, not Posey. That's too expensive, but I think a lot of the other guys in that lineup are really cheap. So
yeah, I mean, it's super contrarian against Archer, who's pitched better late, but he has been up and down this year. I mean, it's not like he's been through games where he's completely unscathed either.
no,
So
that's kind of the vein I'm looking at that in. It's kind of like he has been good, but at the same time, he's been giving up a lot of home runs of late and a lot of earned runs as well. So I don't know. He's got upside, but it's weird. Like he always gets his upside, it seems, but in like giving up 3 or 4 runs, it's wild, and 2 home runs. So.
Right, those double-digit strikeouts are there, but it's as you mentioned. I mean, he gives up 3 to 4 and runs a start or something, and I mean, Duffy at that price tag. I mean, if he gets a base knock, RBI double, it's nice at that price tag.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking, I mean, well, actually, we'll kind of move on here. I mean, is there anyone else you're really looking at third base?
If I'm doing that, then no. That kind of answers that question.
Looking at shortstop here, and this one, I mean, for me, guys like Bogarts, guys like Machado, Nunez, Espinosa, not really in play for me just because Trevor Story and Correa are both at a really nice price tag, 44 and 4,200, both facing lefties. I like Correa a little bit more, obviously, just because of ballpark factors. That takes a lot out of play for me up top, and I think kind of Story and Correa is where I start my shortstop list with.
Yeah, I'm more leaning towards Correa, but he was the first guy that stood out to me at short when I started doing research. Again, Slam, you gotta like that. And Story wasn't someone that's really on my radar, but yeah, I definitely agree with that, especially in Conley's range of outcomes. So you can definitely target those Coors, non-Coors bats. Those Colorado non-Coors bats are cool with me tonight. But yeah, in terms of Correa, he's probably my top option at the position tonight. I'm not paying up for Nunez against Tanaka by any means. I think Machado's always in play, but yeah, Bogarts hasn't really been like what you truly want out of Bogarts of late. So against Iwakuma, it's not a cupcake matchup either. So I think you just go down to Correa and feel pretty confident.
Yeah, that's me as well. I think Correa is my top option. Story's kind of that GPP pivot. Kettle Marte at 4,000 is kind of he's once again part of that Seattle stack. I don't see many of them being one-offs for me.
No.
Seattle's just kind of an all-in or not really any at all.
Yeah, because I don't like that play as a one-off. 4K for him. That might be the most expensive he is all year.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think if you're stacking 1 through 5, and I really like Nelson Cruz, which we'll get to next. But yeah, if you're going 1 through 5, sure. And Aoki if he's in there. But yeah, that's expensive for him. So I don't think that's a viable one-off.
Yeah, I don't either. And because Correa is only 500 more than some of these guys like Johnny Peralta, Julio Cabrera, Villar, they're really taken out of play. And it's unfortunate because we don't have a bare minimum Tim Anderson anymore.
I know. Oh, come on. They shot it up 1,700.
But there is
They usually give you like a grace period and like make one slate where he's 2,500, but straight up to 37. So yeah.
If you want to punt play 2K, Danny Worth against John Lamb, going to be in the lineup against a couple of lefties here against Cincinnati. I mean, the guy hit 260 against lefties. I mean, obviously he's kind of a boomer bust candidate, but if he's at top of the lineup for 2,000 and that Houston run total and hitting in between a lot of those guys, he's worth a look for me if you really need to save some salary. So if you want to get a Donaldson and an Altuve into a lineup, he's probably the guy you're going to need to do that with.
The last time Jason did this was for Tim Anderson, though. So you guys gotta show the respect. Keep the respect in his name and potentially in your mentions if this guy goes off tonight. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean he's no Nick Ahmed at 3K, but
No, he's certainly not. He's certainly not. Uh, and
so,
he certainly doesn't have the name power of Raul Mondesi. But
no, no. But I mean, with that being said, I think that takes a lot of guys out of play in that mid range. I'd rather just pay all the way down and not roll the dice on the guy like a Brandon Crawford or a Kozar. I don't like those names. I'd rather just spin down and go Correa there.
I am in agreement.
Well, thank you, sir.
Yes, I respect your call there, and we're gonna roll with it tonight. What about the superstar Gregorio Pettit?
Yeah, I think his time has passed.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, he still gets that one hit a day, but it's certainly not that same upside we saw a few weeks ago. So I think it's kind of averaging out here. And not necessarily jump ship, but if you want 5 points from him, he can get you 5 points. If you want 10, he can get you 5 points. So that's kind of what you're looking at there.
Yeah. Moving on to the outfield spot, and you were talking about Nelson Cruz, and above 5K, he is my favorite play. I mean, you're looking at guys like Betts, not a necessarily great matchup. Bautista day to day there. Could be in, could be out of the lineup. Michael Saunders priced up at a price, him and Worth of 5K, and that I don't want to pay up for. I'd rather just go Cruz.
Yeah, 5,500 again. Like you mentioned, the Seattle stack really only works together. I don't like these guys. I mean, I do like Cruz as a one-off, but it's very expensive and kind of limits your roster construction a little bit. So if you are trying to get weird, it kind of limits how weird you can get, you know? So in terms of that, I do like him in general, but that is expensive. Michael Saunders, I mean, I mentioned him a little earlier. That's quite the price tag. So not necessarily targeting there, but at the same time, I do like him in a Toronto stack. They're pretty similar lineups tonight. Although Toronto, you can kind of go with the one-offs. So Saunders pretty much just a contrarian one-off, super contrarian. And I think his ownership might be down, but that's because he's at a crazy price, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely not the matchup. I mean, Wright's a lot of 404 Wobbler to lefties, and you look at that ballpark, very friendly for lefty power and Camden Yards. So I'm with you. I think he is a nice one-off, and I'm in agreement. I mean, we can talk about the Seattle bats. I mean, some are a little bit more expensive than others, and they kind of work better as far as just a stack goes. Going downwards, I mean, George Springer kind of kicks things off before we start heading down. But 4,600, I like these Astros bats quite a bit. If John Lamb goes 4 or 5 innings, guess what? You're going to get another atrocious pitcher for the next couple of innings there to fire off and finish off the game. And I think Houston's run total is one of the higher ones. I believe it might be the highest on the slate, maybe rivaling Toronto. And I like Springer at 4,600 quite a bit.
Yeah, me too. Again, I think Houston and Seattle is really the ones you're really excited about tonight. We'll see how that pays off. Maybe Houston just strikes out 15 times like they always do when I get my hopes up for them. But
Jesus, man, I don't need that negativity in here. Get that out of here. Get that out of here. I need one of those like smoke things to just wave away the bad spirit. Go all Phil Jackson on this podcast.
No, Springer's a good play. Altuve's a good play. And Correa as well. I like all three. And in terms of paying up, I mean, Springer's that's a fine price for him, you know, compared to some of the other guys that are super priced up, like Michael Saunders. So, yeah, I do like that. Kind of going down here. I mean, I want to go Braun. Again, I keep getting attracted to this Brewers contrarian sort of move here, just because I don't think people are going to do it. I think people want to root for Urias so bad. I don't see the ownership being there at all.
No, I don't either. And I'm looking at that price thing, 4,100. That's a nice price tag for Braun facing a lefty and an inexperienced lefty at that.
Right.
But I mean, as you mentioned, I mean, you were kind of going through the list here. I mean, there aren't a lot of guys in that 44, 45, 4,300 range that really pop out at you. I think this is kind of a nice night because you can kind of pay down in the outfield if you want, and not maybe go with the Saunders, Springer, or Cruz, and kind of really pay down at your other two spots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And as you mentioned, I mean, we mentioned a couple of Mets bats. I mean, Michael Conforto against Gant's not a bad option. I think it's more of a GPP move for me, but I really don't hate it at that 3,800 price tag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 3,800, solid price. You're getting into sort of value range, and then the Mets, yeah, Conforto's a decent option in that lineup for sure.
Yeah, and I think this Arizona one as well is going to be intriguing to see when it comes out because you really never know who's going to be in that third outfield or one of those infield spots because it could be a Ricky Weeks, it could be a Drury, it could be a Pierre O'Brien. You just never know. So I think that's going to be one where you find that value. They're all value, so it's going to be which one is it, and that's going to be one to keep an eye on. And whoever it is, I'm going to like them and probably have them in a few lineups.
Yeah, just keep an eye out for that as sort of the day goes on, you know. Trace Thompson, if he's sort of in there, they kind of mess around with their lineups quite a bit, but obviously had a good night last night, and I think he could keep that going again tonight.
Yeah, I do too. I'm not afraid of Davies. And one Texas Ranger bat I do like at the price tag is Nomar Mazara at 3,400. Michael Walker really hasn't been that great this season. Mazara, big time power at that price tag. I like him quite a bit in that range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've kind of been distracted for a second because while I went through this the first time, I didn't even notice Stanton was 2,800.
Deservingly so.
Oh my God.
I think he Ks
Okay.
4 times tonight against Gray.
Huh?
I think he Ks 4 times tonight.
I think you're right. And again, I think you just keep going right by him. Like, I don't think you touch him. I don't think you can.
That was like McCutchen last night. McCutchen was about 3,300, and McCutchen's been struggling as well. And it's like at one of these points, they're going to homer. I mean, McCutchen did homer last night. He had a nice 3-hit game, and
Yep.
It's not tonight. I don't think that night tonight's for Stan just because, one, he was facing Bartolo Colon and an average Mets bullpen. Gray is a good right-hander that scares me off bats, even in cores.
Yeah. But so you sort of look at what's happened here in the last few weeks, and it's like you just have to avoid him. He's just costing like your lineups every night. And again, even at 2,800, even if he was the min tonight, I don't honestly think I would roster him.
If he was priced the same way as Danny Worth, I wouldn't roster him.
Honestly, though, Danny Worth or Giancarlo Stanton at 2K.
God, dude, I think you got to go Worth because one, just position-wise, he's at second base and shortstop. It's just a different place to kind of spend down at. And yeah, I'm with you. I mean, he's destroying lineups at this point if you're throwing him in, and I've been guilty of that. I've done it, and
we all have. If you've played DFS this year, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, perfect. Yeah. He fits in perfect here. What a value, Stanton, and then 0 for 3, 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. So keep avoiding him, folks. 193 on the year. I'd rather go Prince Fielder than him at this point because Prince Fielder's actually doing stuff now. So,
oh my God. Is this what DFS has become?
Yes.
Oh man. That's going to wrap things up here with the DK Daily Trot. Be sure to check out DaveFantasyCafe.com for all our great tools and content.